Hey everybody, this is the Wild Ass Podcast, and I am your host, Wild Ass Craig. This is episode 41, and in this episode, I am joined again by Jason Setzer. Jason was on the show just a week ago, and it was a pleasure getting to know him and share his story on a more personal level. I've been given the exclusive opportunity to sit down with the Iceman for his take on the recent documentary he and his son Chase produced for the Mile Monsters. In fact, making this happen is why the last episodes have been crammed together over the past few weeks. Let's bring him onto the show now and talk about the latest project that was released just this past weekend as a private screening at the Brontex Theater in New Braunfels, Texas. Jason, welcome back to the show.
Hey man, thanks for having me back again. Your second video podcast, man. I'm so honored.
Well, you made me suffer through all that work of the first one, and hopefully we got it cleaned up a little bit, so it looks a little bit better coming into this one.
Right on.
To the watchers, to the viewers, listeners, thank you for sticking with me. I know the audio had a little hiccup last time, and we're going to try it this time with just the AirPods. Let's see what happens. So, and thank you again for bearing with me leading up to this to get the bugs worked out. So how you been? 1 week, couple weeks now.
Yeah.
A couple weeks since we spoke, I guess, but 1 week since we aired.
All the butterflies are settling.
For you, now we're back, on a podcast. So I'm sitting here going, now how bad am I shaking? Right so the reason for this podcast, we're going to talk about the documentary. And I really, I want to get your take on this because we've been listening to Riot and, we're hearing all of the excitement that has led up to this. And we haven't talked to him yet because, of course, this just happened. And I kind of want to just talk through this whole thing for you. We talked a little bit about it last week, but just give us a short recap of how all of this came together to create this documentary for the Mile Monsters.
So, initially how, I got introduced and all that, or?
Yeah, because you and Riot didn't know each other at all.
Right.
And, you're friends with Denver. Riot's been on Denver's podcast. They became friends, and that somehow linked up to you.
Yeah. So, I'd met Denver through his podcast. We've become pretty good buddies, and we've been hanging out, online or whatever since. And Riot was on Denver's show, and Riot and Denver know each other real well. And so Riot, he reached out to Denver, and he's like, man, I'm we got this epic ride coming in the summer. We're going to take one of the heroes around, Texas. But we're kind of looking for somebody to video this, as we're doing this, but he didn't want to put it out online. He didn't want to have a big circus, or he didn't want to have, he didn't want to have to deal with a bunch of drama or anything. So he reached out to Denver, and he's like, man, if you know anybody, and he's like, I know just the guy. In fact, he lives right down the road from Gavin, So we got introduced, and then, at the time, I had some experience doing some, motovlogging and stuff like that, but nothing, nothing like, production level, anything, So, anyway, so Riot calls me, and we agree that this is something that we're gonna do together. And then as it got closer, we had a few Zoom calls or whatever. I'd never met Riot before, in person. So as it got closer, we had a couple Zoom calls, and I was like, I'd like to bring my son along if that's all right, and of course he was cool with that. And then so so then in my head I was just like, this is gonna be awesome. I'm gonna get to ride around Texas, and shoot some videos or whatever, and it's gonna be great. And then so when we meet up, and then on that first day, I don't think any of us were able to sleep for the week leading into it. But so that first day, when we all met up at the gas station right down the road, and then we Riot, Hopper, and Twister, and me and my son, we all meet at this gas station, and we all do the hey, how you doing or whatever. We all got gas, and then so they're like, hey, you ready? And then so we're like, yeah, we're ready. And then so me and Chase are walking back to our bikes, which are parked next to each other, and we turn around. Those guys are already on the road. So Chase was like, hey guys, Jesus. So we're, it was like, that was kind of a testament to, it's like, here we go. So we get to Gavin's house, and then, I'm taking some video or whatever. I didn't really know what to do. I was just like, I've got lots of gear, camera gear, stuff like that. I mean, I had enough equipment to do whatever, but I still didn't know what the hell I was doing, So I'm taking some video or whatever, and then I hear Riot say this word I never heard before, and he was telling somebody about a documentary, and I was like, is that us? So yeah, so I was, me and Chase, I was just like, holy smokes, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm kind of feeling like a fraud at this point. So, but no, I mean, it was the first day or two. It was a little tough because not really any of us knew what we were doing in terms of who was going to do what. So it was like, I mean, there was things to do whenever we got to the dealerships. And hanging out and shooting the bull wasn't one of them, but that's what you typically do whenever you roll up to a Harley dealership. You just you pop off your bike and you stay, say hi everybody. You usually always got beer. It's always like a little mini party. But we had to hit 40 of these things in 8 days, so yeah, it took some adjustment for sure the first couple of days. But by the end of day 2, and probably even a little sooner, but by the end of day 2, I would say it was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do when you get there. When we get there, I'm going to do this. Chase is going to do that. We're going to get this shot. We're going to get that shot. And so, there's 40 stops, and it's basically the same thing happening at all 40 stops. Even though it's different, it's still kind of the same, right? So I knew that we weren't going to be able to use all the footage because it's repetitive. But at the same time, I'm like, well, if one of these shots doesn't work out, of course you got the other one. You know what I mean? So anyways, the ball really started getting going, and it was just like, we met up with some guys along the way, and it was just it was ever evolving. Of course, you know what I mean? And of course, by the last day, it was like, man, if we did this for another week, it would have been, we could write you a freaking instruction manual on how to do this, But the first couple of days though, I was just like, I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I had 5 cameras on my bike. I had my handheld with the microphone on it. And so anybody that ever rides a Harley knows Harleys rattle, they shake, so it's like, no. I've ruined a lot of camera gear, in my early vlogging days, just because I would chunk my camera in my tour pack or whatever, and it would, rattle all the fittings loose or whatever. And it's like, oh man. So I had created this foam insert in the top of my luggage that I could put my camera. Well, it wasn't easy to get to, but it was secure, right? So it's like, it was underneath the bag, and then so it's like you got to, it was a sprint. Every time we got to a dealership, man, we was like, okay, jump off the bike, flip my bag, get my camera. Then I got this little tripod camera over here that I'm going to go set up by the front door and catch Gavin as he's walking in. And I'm going to follow him with this camera. And yeah, it was a challenge. It was a fun challenge for sure. But yeah, and of course the whole time it's like, man, I don't want to screw this up, So, yeah. But all that really started working out, so it was good.
That's good. I want to show the intro clip that pretty much everybody has seen. This one's been out for a while, but I want everybody to take a look at this, and then we're going to talk about this for just a minute.
Who's riding hard to make a young man's wish come true.
An 8-year-old boy from Shirt.
An 8-year-old boy from Shirt.
An 8-year-old Texas boy.
Hoping to inspire other kids with a Harley ride across Texas.
Gavin has Duchenne muscular dystrophy, or DMD. It's a genetic and deadly disease in which the person's muscles slowly waste away.
The disease that is slowly afflicting him.
Wish you luck there. Kickstands up, Gavin.
That's so cool. And I know one of the comments that you made earlier was something to the effect of no like production experience. Well, that, my friend, proves to me that you are way better than you give yourself credit for, because that looks fantastic. And when it first came out, I'm not the only one that was like, "Oh, damn, this is going to be cool." What kind of feedback did you start getting once this thing started hitting the Facebook world?
So when we dropped that right there, that intro, um, it became real for a lot of people. I think it was like, okay, this is really happening, and here we go, we're close. So that was kind of cool, because like leading up to us releasing that, we were I mean we put a lot of work into it. So it's just like I've probably seen this in some way, shape, or another. I would say easily close to 1,000 times. Just the amount of go here, back up, change this, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and then so it kind of loses as you're getting through it and you're making this video. It kind of loses the initial impact, but every time I watch that, it gets me fired right back up, and it's like, oh, and I think I feel like that resonated with a lot of people also. Everybody seemed to be pretty receptive to it. So
I think you're absolutely right. What was the feedback you started getting?
when's it going to be ready? That was like the initial. Of course, a lot of people were like, that's badass, that's awesome. When's it going to be ready? When are you thinking? Do you think it's still going to be this year, and all this? And so it seemed to generate some buzz. It seemed to be really like on people's radar then. So. But yeah, everybody seemed to be pretty receptive to it. So, and excited.
Yeah, and it seemed like, yeah, we've all been hearing about it, and then you kind of forget about it, right? Because there's a lot going on. There's life. There's, then it was coming into the holidays and winter, so the upper half of the country is starting to shut down, and then we kind of forget about it again. And then there was a couple of Monster Mondays or whatever leading up to that Christmas when this thing came out, where there was little mentions of this coming, and I think a lot of people are like, wait, is it coming out? And then it was totally this teaser. When it came out, everybody was like, oh my god, when it is, it's got to be done. Like, it totally, I thought it was done. I figured it was done, and this was just the teaser, and that was it. It wasn't done at this point, is what you're saying?
No, I had I was really close. So how me and my son worked on this was I cut the story together, and so of course there's overlap. We both did a little bit of everything, but the main role was I cut the story together, and then he come through, and then he added, the graphics and cleaned up the audio and stuff like that. So I was really close to cutting. I think I had a day and a half left, because I did this per day, and then so as you go through, you see like this was on day one. And then, as we're starting the next day, you can see the map, and it shows you where we're at, and it shows you about how many miles we went the day before. And, this is how we're starting our day. And so, I don't know, the amount of work that had to be done after we sent that, I kind of underestimated, because I was just like, my portion is almost done, and then so when I cut the last day, I was just like, Chase, what are you thinking? A couple hours?
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was I knew for certain it was going to be done, because my workload at work, it allowed me to have that time available if need be. Luckily though, Chase was, he was able to really help me out with it. So
Good deal. So you talked a little bit about riding and getting the hang of riding and getting your stops in. So your first days of riding with the monsters, I have notes. I was going to talk to you about working cameras, running ahead, running behind. I have to assume that when you guys would take off to go riding, and this is just an assumption, is one of you would take off riding ahead so you could get video, and the other guy would be behind so you can get that video. Now, you really didn't know what you were getting into. Now, also, you're riding with these three very accomplished long distance riders that really probably never stop. How was that to deal with in the beginning?
So if anybody has ever ridden with these monsters, you'll know what I'm talking about. But for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, they did not give any I guess I don't want to say thought, but they didn't give any accommodation to a film crew or people, like trying to catch the moment. Because to be like really good at catching the moment, you would ideally be surrounding the event as it's happening, and then everybody moves together. You don't really do that with these guys. You try to keep up. That's the number one thing. And if it's just us riding, that's easy enough to do for us, because we've been riding forever. And like it was nice because like I'd even said with my son about midway through, it was really nice to ride with people that ride like us. But when you're trying to record things, when you're trying to get shots and everything, like I brought a drone. I used it one time, and that's when everybody was about to go to bed. That was the only time. That was the only chance I had to use it. You know what I mean? We shot ahead one time through the whole trip. We were able to get ahead of the group, and that was only because it was in San Antonio, which is really close to where I live. So I knew the area, and I knew which stop was next, and I knew a shortcut to get there that they weren't taking. And so I was like, "Oh, this would be a great opportunity. I'm just going to go blast ahead." So me and Chase, we jumped way ahead up in at the Javelina, which was stop number 2, I think, or stop number 3. And so we blasted ahead. And when I say blasted ahead, we like trickled ahead of what the pack was already doing. You know what I mean? So it was like we pull into Javelina, and then I get my camera out. Chase gets his camera out, and I was like, I'm changing a couple of settings, and here they come. And I was like, yeah, this isn't going to work. So, yeah.
That's awesome. So one thing that was pretty funny in the show, and we've heard about it, or I should say we heard about it previously through, Facebook, social media posts and whatever. But what was your moto camping experience before riding with these guys? Your personal experience.
My moto camping experience, it revolves around a hotel pool. That's the extent of my camping experience,
okay.
If I'm being honest. So that's
hilarious.
we live in Texas, man. It's like always 100 degrees. It's 90 at night. That's not favorable camping conditions. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so never really been on my radar. And so when Riot, we had a couple of Zoom calls leading into this, and he was talking about camping, and I was like really like camping, and I was like, this during the July trip, it's during this heat wave, and he was like, yeah, I'm probably not even going to bring a sleeping bag, and I'm like, are you going to bring an air conditioner? I'm like, what are we doing here? So, but I'm game for anything, and of course I wasn't going to miss out on any of this. So, yeah. So we had bought
not a very experienced. Yeah, so not a very experienced camper.
Yeah, no, not at all. So
I'm going to show this clip, and then we're going to get your take on how this went down.
And then I got woken up at like 2 a.m. and said, hey, we got to go.
Hey, what time is it? 3:14 in the a.m.
So not an experienced camper. You picked the ocean to camp from what the story is. And evidently the tide came in. So how quick did you have to get your gear packed up, and what was going through your mind at this time?
So my gear was a little bit more involved than the Monsters gear, because these guys are used to sleeping at the Hoka Hotel, right? And I am not. So me and Chase, we had tents. I had as Hopper effectively called my blow-up mattress the high rise. I think Riot even called it a raft. So he was like, they weren't worried about waking up, Jason. He's fine. He'll float through all this, But so like these guys, they just threw out a tarp and they're trying to, get some Z's or whatever. And so when we initially set up, a couple of us asked about the tide, and there's a big no camping sign, no camping on the beach as we come rolling in. And so Hopper's like, it's good. It's do it all the time. And so, we were setting up, and the mosquitoes were crazy. It was like 110% humidity. Right. So it was like sweating, it was like raining inside of my tent, and so, it was not favorable conditions, but, so I'm like, I tell you what, though, it was pretty cool. We didn't mention this. We actually saw a Starlink array of satellites go over that night. It was the first time I'd ever seen one. That was kind of cool. And so like I peeked out my tent and I was like, yep. And so anyways, it was probably 2:00 in the morning. And then I hear some talking. And I'm like, what's going on? He's like, yeah, I'm not really sleeping. I'm just catching little, 5-10 minute naps, And then so I hear something about a tide, and then I hear Chase, hey buddy, hey bud, we're gonna have to move. We're gonna have to get going. I was like, damn. So yeah, started breaking. I tell you what though, I broke down in record time. In the dark, so that was a challenge, especially with all they did was have to fold up a tarp, they were ready to go, and so we're like rolling up my air mattress and then taking down my tent and pulling out my chairs and all this stuff. So it was probably not as efficient as I would have liked to have been.
I was sitting here thinking, you thought they got done at the gas station fast.
Yeah.
To get up and get moving. They don't have to fold up nothing. That's awesome. One thing that all of us riders know, we all know the possibility of crashes. We don't talk about it. It's a given, right? And you had a little bit of an incident I say a little bit of an incident because it could have been way worse, but I'm going to put this clip in here and then we're going to talk about this.
This just got to be the worst case scenario.
Oh no. Oh, not Twister. Oh no.
So you can tell in the video that Twister's sitting up on the road. But what a total buzzkill, huh? I mean, it could have been so much worse, and so blessed that it wasn't, of course. But how did you turn around, come up to the scene? I noticed you weren't the last, or were you the last one there? What kind of happened there, and what were you thinking as you came rolling up?
So what happened was, as a group, we had all, we were stopping to smell the roses all day, all morning. And so, it was getting hot out. It was around noon, a little later than noon. And so we had stopped, to take some more pictures or whatever. And so Riot and Gavin, they went up ahead of us to find some shade, and so, they had pulled off somewhere there in the shade. And, as we eventually caught back up, we were passing, and we saw. So I was at I usually stayed at the end of the pack and then would kind of just move as I needed throughout the whole trip. So whenever we came over the hill, we saw them. And then so like I slowed down in a hurry and I pulled over with Riot. And then so the other three went over the hill, another hill. And so Riot saw me come up, and so he's getting Gavin together or whatever, and so he was like, oh, that was fast or whatever. So he's getting on the bike, and like we said, we get they get ready in a hurry. So he's backing his bike out, and then for a brief second I was like, well, that's weird. I haven't seen anybody come back over the hill. It was just a flash of a second, and I was just like, it came and went just that fast. And then so I'm following Riot, and we're going to go catch up to everybody else. They probably just pulled over and they're waiting for us. So we get over this hill, and I don't even know why I started recording. I was recording with my helmet camera, and when we came over that hill, and you could just see all the cars everywhere, and then you could just see something wasn't right. Of course, it's just like, everything just got slow motion and then stopped, and then so Riot was in front of me with Gavin. And then so as we're pulling up, I'm saying that, as I'm seeing it, no, I'm not Twister, and so I guess when we pulled up, the video of my helmet, it kind of cuts off as I'm pulling my helmet off. So at that moment, Riot is over there by Twister and helping her to her feet. Chase and Hopper had already pulled her bike off to the off the side of the road, and so I was like trying to assess where I could be of value. So I went to Gavin, and so I didn't want him to get freaked out by what was happening, and I didn't. This is I don't know Gavin like everybody else does, so he was sitting on Riot's bike. And then so I positioned myself away from, because I didn't know how bad Twister was. And so like I was trying to get his attention to look at me. And so I'm just, like trying to make small talk. And he's like, he's chill. He's just like, when are we going to go? I'm like, okay, well, this is, that's, we're trying to work through it, bud. We'll see what's happening, and then we'll get going. But so, what had happened was they were making a U-turn, and Chase and Hopper got through the U-turn, they got completed or whatever, and this car comes flying over the hill and veers over the same direction that Twister's doing her U-turn. And then so, she straightened up, and she clipped the back end of his car, and the rest is in the video, of course, but it was almost tragic, and it was, probably the best case scenario, if you could ever call it that. If you were going to hit a vehicle, that's like the, that car was doing, 90 miles an hour easy, and so I don't know how much braking they got done between when he and her hit, but whatever that speed is got to be the best case scenario for a collision that I've ever seen, And so, yeah, that's part of it. But whenever I saw Riot help Twister to her feet, I will say I did get it was just like, okay, this is you're starting to check off just how bad it is. Of course I didn't even care about the bike, it's just,
right.
How is she, and then it was like, okay, now let's work logistics,
So did the other car stick around?
Yeah, it was the whole scene.
Okay.
They had the cop showed up, and then that all worked out or whatever, however it did, and then
Okay,
we had to get her bike towed, and
Yeah.
it wasn't a hit and run or anything like that. So
Well, that's
And I mean,
that's good.
it wasn't, I don't want to assess blame to anybody. It is what it is. What happened, it happened. Everybody felt bad. And then we all collectively all try to figure out how to move forward from here and keep going. So,
Yep. No, that's a question I had looking at the video, because you could see the police car there and you can't really see a lot of what else is going on. But yeah, certain sigh of relief. Now, those three guys, Hop, Riot, and Twister are a team, obviously love each other. What, how was the mood after this?
So
Once they got their bearings straight and it's like, okay, we can get, we got a tow truck coming. Now what?
So, right. So, Riot and after we figured out what the next step was, which was, I mean, we were all out there in this, in the heat for probably about an hour. And then after that is about when Riot took Gavin to this restaurant, which was about 45 minutes away, because we were out in the middle of nowhere. And that, of course, this is where this stuff always seems to happen, right? But so Riot takes Gavin out of, he's trying to get him out of the heat, and he runs him up to this restaurant where the rest of us are going to meet up. And then so we hang out a little, we're, me and Chase and Hopper, we're all trying to wait until the tow truck comes. And then, of course, we had to move some baggage. Excuse me. We had to move some baggage around so that, she could get a ride, and then so we did all that, but she ended up going with the tow truck. So we're, trying to wait for movement before we leave. And then so troopers started showing up, and then, everything started working. So Chase and I, we left, and then it was Hopper and Riot, or Hopper and Twister there. And then, so we waited for Hopper to show up at this restaurant. And so I remember asking Riot, I was like, how do you want to because we were making a social media presence every day, and so my biggest fear was, like, I don't want to say my biggest fear, but a concern of mine was optics, perception, because accidents do happen. I can promise you, these guys are not reckless, and they're definitely not reckless with Gavin. You know what I mean? They love this kid, and they are not going to put him in harm's way, aside from the inherent risk that you have on a bike. You know what I'm saying? It's not like it's not like we were being careless with the boys' safety and concern. You know what I mean? And so I'd asked Riot, "What do you think? I mean, people are going to notice, that that there's a bike missing, and now there's another passenger. So I was like." My opinion is that, you get out in front of it and just kind of squash it, and then, like, this is where we're going to go, whatever. And then, so we kind of, talked about it or whatever. And I think, Riot had that already in his mind. He was going to do anyway. And then, so we got to, Hopper shows up at the restaurant. We sat down and had our first meal that Kim will tell you repeatedly how she got to miss out on her first meal, which was her favorite food. So there was, you asked what the mood was like. It wasn't really like, once we left the scene, I would say, like, it wasn't like a burden. It wasn't like a heavy, there was obvious stuff that was happening, but it wasn't like, oh man, this is, we got to turn around, we got to stop this. Or there was nothing like that. It was just always, how do we move forward, and how do we get this accomplished? So,
oh, that's good.
Yeah, we met up with I think it was Wild West is where we had our bike towed to, and then there was a little bit of footage of that was the other thing too, is like you don't. Chase and I had one job, and that was to record everything, and it's like, you don't want to be insensitive, and you don't want to be, like, so how's everything, and so there was a little bit of a challenge recording what was happening, all that, but no, it was, I think it was good. The morale was good. Everybody, once we saw that Twister was okay, even Kim was, in good spirits about it. And, I think I would say the morale was good.
Good. Yeah. And that's, anybody that does a lot of riding, that this stuff just happens and you just pick it up and move on. I was curious collectively if that held true. And I know other people other people that don't ride would think, oh my God, we got to stop,
Right.
So I didn't suspect it would be terrible, but it's good to hear that it was, just okay, now what? Let's keep going. So
Yeah.
that's cool. So you went to, did you say it was Wild West Harley where her bike
I
was?
think that's where it was,
Okay.
we towed her bike. Memory. Yeah. And then so at this point, we're trying to figure out, her knee is banged up, but she could still ride if she had something to ride. Right. So we're like trying to figure out, well, where can we rent a bike? We even thought about trying to buy a bike, and it was just, we're trying to work out all, everything on the fly. And then, and of course, Riot's like, listen, don't, you are not a burden to us. If you please come with us, throw all my stuff away, like he had said in the video, and you can ride with me and you can have all my space. You know what I mean? So, we moved all the stuff around, and then from there is, it's just more of the same, okay, now how do we approach this now? So.
Yeah. No, so that you talked about the dealership, which leads me to my next clip. It kind of led me right into it. So thank you for that. But this clip is definitely one of the highlights. So I want to bring this on and show you and show the viewers what this clip is. So here we go.
To a salesman and said, "Can I rev one of these up?" And I couldn't believe he asked that. He just goes, "Hey, can I," just random salesman goes, "Hey, can I rev one of these up?"
Can you rev one, man? I don't know about that.
We're indoors.
Are you crazy? Man, I'll see what I can do. Tyler, think we can let this little man rev that? Let's rev it on up, man. Let's
hold on, we're getting the video running.
And I tell you what, this is what I love about cool ass dealerships. Without hesitation, that guy turns to Gavin and says, "Well, pick one out, my man. I love that idea."
You gotta pick your favorite one. Which one of your favorite ones? Let's pick your favorite one. Oh, the green one. Nice. Nice. There you go. There you go. Get some
Hopper, you're going to want to be here.
Gabby, you blew the shit out of my ears. I don't know why, but I was not thinking you were going full bore right out of the gate.
Yeah.
You're a savage. What do you say?
Yeah,
Did you like that? Yeah. So what was the best part? Yeah, the throttle, right? Yeah. Do you like to go fast? Yeah. Fast motorcycles are loud or fun, right? That is badass. What do you say? That was awesome.
Yeah.
Now we'll get everybody around in front. We'll get a picture in front of this thing.
Yeah.
With your banner. How's that sound? You got the banner? We'll get a picture of everybody in front of this.
So awesome. That's so cool. What shop was this?
So that was at Texas Harley, and that was at Bedford, Texas, which is in between Fort Worth and Dallas.
So many cool things in that clip. It's amazing how receptive some of these dealerships can be. I know some were closed, so they weren't all this receptive, but how many were like this one? Just really.
Did I lose you, or did you lose me?
I think I lost everything. So
there we go. There we go.
we're gonna figure out how to edit this. But
that'll be fine.
Let me get back here. I was gonna send you a message. So anyway,
you want to ask
a little technical difficulty there. So sorry about that. But I don't know if it picked it up or not. But tell us again, what shop was this?
Okay, so that was Texas Harley. That was in Bedford, Texas, which is in between Fort Worth and Dallas.
Okay. So I know a lot of the shops you hit, 40 shops in 8 days, a number of them were closed. But what's amazing about this shop is there's so many different things about this clip is they were so receptive and so welcoming of all of you guys coming in. And obviously they did this for Gav, but how many shops were like this? How many were that receptive to you guys coming in?
I mean, there was a definitely different level of reception between all of them that we went in to visit. And in their defense too, like, so on day one, it was just kind of like, hey, what's going on? So like as we got more efficient at what we were doing, we started tagging dealerships, let them know we were coming, and things like this. And then it started to really change. They could see what we were doing, and then they could kind of change, I guess, how the reception was going to be. You know what I mean? So, and I would say all of them, that they had, some of them had, killer shopping sprees. Some of them, like Texas, they were just super, hey man, our place is your place. What can we do? They had helped out the Riot with, I don't know what they did some bike maintenance for them, and so, we were also trying to stay out of the heat a little bit at that stop. And these guys are just super accommodating, like, hey, what can we do for you? And then so a lot of them were like that in some capacity. Whenever Hopper had his tire slashed, and we had to stop and get a tire, like we tagged a dealership and said, hey, this is happening, And so sometimes you don't know how they run their marketing department and everything like that. But on this trip, once we started tagging these dealerships, they really started to, help out however they could. So like the deal with the tire, right? So whenever we rolled in there at Red River, they were like, hey, are you Hopper, or are you with Hopper? We got a tire all ready for you. Just you bring your bike on back. So it started, just like the whole trip, things as we progressed, we got better. And then the dealerships, they saw us coming. They knew we were going to be there. We started having, we had got the comment a few times, we were waiting for you guys. Some of our customers were coming in asking if they had missed you guys come through yet, so that was really cool. So
that's really cool.
And I know, I would say it's a tough question to answer because in their own way, they were all receptive in some way. Some guys stayed late. We showed up after closing, and they knew we were coming, so they stayed there and they waited for us to show up, handed out waters, made sure we were all good. Most of them, asked if they could, like we were picking up swag for a man along the way, and they're like, "Hey man, can we mail this out for you? Is anything we can do?" So
I saw that.
Yeah, that was as the trip progressed, that reception got better just because of the exposure, I would say. So
yeah, for sure. So probably the best part of that clip we just watched was Gavin's face. I mean, you can't hide how excited he was for that. And that was probably what made that whole thing so touching, I guess would be the word, but that was cool. You talk about you had mentioned in there people asking where you were. Now I know in the movie you talk about, you kind of had to start running off course and winging it because of the heat and trying to catch places when they're open. And I noticed that happened. So it's pretty neat that these shops were paying attention to what was going on. And it's nice to know that even while you're out there live, people were going, hey, are they here? Are they coming? So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was a really great feeling. We had a couple of gas station places we'd stopped. There was at least two that I know for sure, and I think it happened more than twice. But when we showed up to get gas, we had to go inside to pay at a couple of places, or we're going inside to hang out in the beer cooler or whatever it is. There was a couple of times that I experienced where they were like, "Hey, you're with the boy. You're all the ones going all over Texas." I was like, holy smokes, Gavin, get over here. This is him. Yeah. Here's how you can help. So
that's cool.
It was really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. So the next clip I want to show you, this is just a real short clip. I think this is as you're coming into Lone Star Harley Davidson. So let's watch this one. It's just, like I say, this is just a short one.
We are mile monsters. Gavin is our hero. So Gavin had a wish. He wanted to see every Harley dealership within the state of Texas.
So that's not even your video. That's local news coming to check this out, right?
So yeah, that was in Tyler, Texas. That was Lone Star Harley in Tyler, Texas, and that was the first stop where we had a news crew and the whole big shebang, waiting for us. That was a really good, energizing stop for us. They interviewed the parents, they interviewed the monsters and Gavin. It was a very very good reception. A lot of support, a lot of love. That was a really good boost, to help. I mean, because this was day. Oh, I don't even know which day this was. It was pretty late in the trip, and so it's like, nothing was repetitive, but it kind of was. It was just like, you're going through the motions and whatever, and then it's like, to see Gavin, it's like, hey, it's like, this is for you, and so it was a great readjustment, I would say, just to, it's like, it was I'm a bubbling idiot. I can't put it into words. It was just it was a great midway checker finish. You know what I mean? Even though it wasn't a finish, it was a great way to continue the trip.
Yeah, and it was really cool because in the movie we got to see some of those interviews. I'm sure we didn't get to see all of them, but we got to see the interviews, the conversation, the amount of food. It looked like there was a huge party there. At least in the video, you made it look that way. So
no, it was.
This was
it
all
was
done.
huge.
Yeah, this was all done by the dealership too, wasn't it?
Yeah. So Canes had come out and they'd sponsored all the food and they had drinks and everything. Yeah, it was amazing. It was just an amazing stop. The show support. The thing about the interviews was there's plenty of news clips out there, and so I tried in the show to I tried to record the full video of the interview between mom and dad, and then so I tried to play some stuff that I thought was maybe a little kind of pertinent that was left out of the news clip, because the news they got to get in and get out, and then of course you can't. The thing with video is you can't play everything you record, so I try to counterbalance, or I try to balance, you know what I mean, try to show some more, so, but yeah, it was a great stop.
Yeah, it's cool. It was, the video and the stuff that went along with it was great. It was well placed, of course, in the movie. I don't want to talk much beyond that point. The end of the movie was probably one of the most touching parts, and I don't even want to. We don't really have to discuss it, but it was perfectly ended for where we're at so far. I know that this is not the end. But yeah, I don't want to talk much about that. People can see it in the final version. You and Chase, your work, your editing, the addition of the maps and the mileage, the way you were able to bring all of us along for the ride was absolutely fantastic. I think it turned out so well. And I don't know, you said you're not much in the production side of things, but maybe this is a sign of things to come.
Well, it was definitely a passion project. It was a lot of fun to put together. I'm forever grateful. I'm very, very grateful. A lot of gratitude in my heart for being able to have the opportunity to come along and see this, and of course continue to be a part of this community after. I got a really unique opportunity to have a front row seat to what the Mile Monsters are all about, and this is I think it's a beautiful story, but it's just one story of what Mile Monsters do for these kids, and I hope that that's kind of I hope that comes through. So.
I think it did very well. And you had talked about in our previous podcast, you talked about the love that these guys and Twister. I say these guys as a group. That everybody has for these boys it's kind of ridiculous. It's so cool, and you definitely captured that in this movie.
So one of the things, whenever we initially set out to do this, was all about Gavin, and that was Riot's thing. He was like, "Hey, I want this to, I want this to be about Gavin. I want him to have this for the rest of his life, And then so, kind of, I don't know what the right word is, but kind of secretly, I was like, well, this kind of needs to be about the Mile Monsters also, of course, the subject matter, of course, is going to be about Gavin, but I was really hoping to show not just this incredible trip that an 8-year-old with Duchenne's did over the summer, but this organization and what they're about and how they are. That was definitely a high second goal for me. So.
No, you covered it well. So, like I said, this is not the final, and you've repeated that to me, and we know that because you're going to add a few little things to the end of this. So tell us a little bit about that quick, and then we can wrap this up.
So the footage that we got from the movie theater is we're going to add that into a final release. And so what we watched was the theatrical version, right? I think that's how the movies do it. There's a theatrical cut and a director's cut or whatever. So there's a couple little things that we're going to probably clean up just because that's how Chase and I are. But also we wanted to add the impact it had on the people at the theater. It's like, so we're going to throw some of that footage together. And then we're going to have some extra goodies that we're going to throw in there as well. So that the final, and we've said the final cut, I don't know how many times throughout the course of making this thing, but the actual final thing that's going to be, available for everybody to download, it'll have stuff that, the guys in the theater, the people in the theater didn't get to see. So.
Right. That's cool. So when, I'm assuming this is going to be done by the end of the year?
By the end of the year.
You guys know where that comes from, folks. If you like what you're hearing, hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. You can follow the adventures on Facebook, Instagram, and now YouTube by looking for The Real Wild Ass. Of course, I am Wild Ass Craig. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for listening. And we'll see you again in a couple weeks. Thank you again, Iceman, for coming back on the show. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.